Hello and welcome to The Insider, a show designed to clue you into the biggest news, events and announcements inside the video games industry, discussing with you some things you may know, some things you may not, and the glue that holds it all together is a little bit of my own opinion. My name is Paul James, thank you very much for watching, and let's get off with another episode. So we all knew that it was just a matter of time before rumours of the PS5 began to surface, and this past week they finally have. There's been a few different reports and rumours circulating from a few different people, a few different outlets, and in this week's episode of The Insider, we're going to wrap up each of those and discuss what they mean for the future of the PlayStation 5 going forward. Come along for the ride. PlayStation. So there are two main published works in the last week that have prompted this episode of The Insider. The first, and the one that kind of kicked everything off, is a piece by a website called Semi-Accurate, which maybe says a lot about them straight out the gate. But they were reporting that dev kits have now been distributed to developers around the world for the PlayStation 5, and that this would mean that in turn, we were going to be seeing the console launch in 2018. That has been countered in some ways by Kotaku's Jason Schreier, a man who I personally respect quite highly for his knowledge of the industry, for the number of connections that he's got, and his information suggests otherwise. We're going to break down what they're both saying, what it means, next.
So I'll ask you once again, Samurai. Do you surrender?
Firstly, let's look at the history of this whole thing, and let's focus on what happened specifically at PlayStation, because all these rumours are circulating around the PlayStation 5, and let's look at what happened in the case of the PlayStation 4. Now, developers big and small tend to have their hands on dev kits about 12 months beforehand, and in some special cases, they have those dev kits 18 to 24 months in advance, as was the case for the PS4. Often, that dev kit is just a PC that's built using the same specs that the console will eventually be featuring. But even then, those things are subject to change based on developments of the console, time, new technology that emerges, and a whole range of different things. So these dev kits are still quite different the day they receive them to the day that developers finally release their first product using it. So that's an important lens to keep in mind as we discuss everything that comes next.
I'll walk through the valley of the shadow of death, and I fear no evil because I'm blind to it all. In my mind, my gun, they comfort me, because I know I'll kill my enemies when they come. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell on this earth forevermore. Said I walk beside the still waters and they restore my soul, but I can't walk on the path of the right because I'm wrong. No, I can't walk on the path of the right because I'm wrong.
So the semi-accurate piece, which is behind a $1,000 paywall, I might add, suggests that developers have now started getting their hands on the dev kits, and the console is on its way in 2018. That's quite soon. There's quite a lot to take in here, but Schreier's report kind of, and he's got a lot of connections, a lot of third parties, first parties, all of them are anonymous, but there's a number of people that are talking about how they've never even heard of a PlayStation 5. There was two that had, and even then, they didn't know a huge amount. It was kind of in the early planning stages. They know some of the plans, but they don't know about a full-on rollout. So that says quite a lot about perhaps the direction this console's going. They did say that even 2019 was unlikely, which, I mean, that doesn't surprise me personally. 2018, it's a very short turnaround from here till the end of the year to announce, release, manufacture, get the console out the door. It all seems quite weird. 2019, if these developers are suggesting that 2019 seems unlikely, well, we can extrapolate on that, and we'll discuss that next.
What are you doing, kiddo? You really gonna go through with this?
So the semi-accurate report suggests that 2018 was the year that we were going to get the PlayStation 5. This is incredibly unlikely, for a number of different reasons. Obviously, there is Jason's report, which is quite comprehensive, speaks to a lot of developers who, most of them said, were clueless to the existence of the PlayStation 5, so they clearly don't have projects in the works. And there are even some first parties amongst that. So it says quite a lot that if first party studios, Sony in-house studios, don't even know about the PS5, then it is definitely not coming this year. It's also hard to believe that a leak hasn't come sooner if that's the case, if it was on track for 2018. By this particular stage, the consoles would be in the manufacturing process. So for these consoles to be getting manufactured right now, with an end of 2018 release date in the gun, and for it not to have leaked, for us to not see anything, for Sony not to announce something, that is incredibly, incredibly unlikely. My suggestion is that 2020 is probably the best window for this console, for a bunch of different reasons. We've got a bunch of big hitters still on the way for 2019. Think Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us Part 2, Concrete Genie, and the possibility, albeit unlikely, of Death Stranding. There's some big games on the way for the PS4/PS5. They've committed, they've doubled down on the PS4. So it seems fairly unlikely that 2019 even is the year that we'll see the console. Maybe an announcement, but no, not the release. There's other factors that are also in play here. We have to think about what Microsoft is doing. Now, there have been no leaks about an Xbox 2 or anything like that yet, but think that last year was just the release of the Xbox One X, a mid-generation step up, essentially. Why would they release that and then 12 to 18 months later release the next generation? They're really going to be biting off a bit more than they can chew, and potentially upsetting some of their consumers, such as myself. I don't want to buy an Xbox One X and then all of a sudden have to fork out for a new console 12 to 18 months later to get a head start on PlayStation. You would have to think that the Xbox 2 and the PS5 are at least 24 months away. You have to think 2020 is the right window for these two systems. For that reason, for manufacturing, and a whole bunch of others.
I'm gonna find, and I'm gonna kill every last one of them.
So what does it mean for the Sony slate of games? Well, we can look at God of War. That's just come out, so we don't have to worry about that. But it does mean that Sony Santa Monica might be developing the next game in that series or something else entirely, and that might be arriving early in the next generation. But again, still probably 2020 at the earliest. There's Horizon Zero Dawn from Guerrilla. That could be in development for the next generation, but it's also now been a year since that game released, about 6 months since the DLC came out. It's still fairly early on, but it's also possible that they might use that engine and be able to develop a sequel that releases this gen. Who knows? When we look at Naughty Dog, they are working on The Last of Us Part 2. Maybe, like the original Last of Us, that is a game that it kind of straddles both generations. We saw it in the form of The Last of Us Remastered. Maybe we'll see the same with The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, or something similar when the PS5 comes out. But you would have to think that that game is initially going to launch on the PS4, just as the prior game did. The one that I think is a prime candidate to release first on the PS5, or only on the PS5, is Kojima's Death Stranding. That is a very ambitious game. Kojima is known to take a long time with his games and his projects, and that's fine. That's not meant to be a criticism of the guy. He takes a long time to work on these games and to get them fleshed out and for them to be what he truly believes they need to be. And that might mean that 2020 is a great window for that game, and falls in line with the PS5. I'm tipping it here, Death Stranding is a PS5 game, and we will see it in 2020.
Sam! Shut up. Don't even breathe.
So that wraps up another episode of The Insider. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider liking, sharing and subscribing. All those buttons are down below here, and that'll allow you to get access to weekly episodes of Patched, The Video Games Club, The Insider, a whole lot of Player 2 plays, our new series, The Late Game Review, and if you hit that notification bell, you'll get alerted to every single time one of those videos goes up. So please make sure to hit it, please make sure to hit subscribe, and we'll see you in future episodes. If you enjoy written content, make sure to visit the website. That is player2.net.au, where you'll find reviews, previews, opinion pieces, news, features, the Player 2 Writers Draft, and a whole lot more, all contributed by some of the best talent in Australia. We've got some awesome people writing for us, and you should go and check out their work. It's great. If you want to become a patron, we've set ourselves up with Patreon. That is patreon.com/player2au. And if you can even chip in a few dollars, you'll get early access to videos. At some of the higher tiers, you'll get exclusive videos. And at the top tier, you can join us in the monthly Player 2 podcast. There are some awesome perks there, and only a few dollars does the job. It helps the Player 2 dream continue to come alive. Your help would be massively appreciated. For rolling updates, you can find me at PaulJamesP2 on Twitter. The website you can find at Player2AU on Twitter. And until next time, thank you very much for watching. Get hyped, but be cautious about the future of the PS5. And I'll see you next time.